What if a town doesn't vanish from the map, but is never placed there to begin with? And what if people across the world keep dreaming about it without ever meeting each other? In June 2025, a neural project known as RimNet-1 quietly launched at the University of Melbourne. It wasn't your average AI experiment. This one had a strange singular task: to search for patterns across millions of anonymous dream journals. RimNet's training data came from over a decade of user-submitted dream entries, more than 6 million logs collected from sleep clinics, dream forums, mental health studies, and even lucid dreaming apps. It was designed not to interpret dreams, but to detect recurrences, like shared symbols and unconscious overlaps. 3 weeks into training, the model flagged an anomaly. One word kept surfacing repeated, consistently across thousands of dreams: Calvenhollow. It wasn't a product name. It wasn't a person, brand, or cultural reference. No entries had the same writing style. No location, language, or age group in common. Just the word: Calvenhollow. And sometimes additional fragments: the clock tower that chimes backward, street signs in perfect mirror text, the hill where no one casts a shadow after midnight. I dreamt I lived there, and when I woke up, I missed someone I'd never met. The research team pulled 93,000+ entries that mentioned the term. They spanned 53 countries, 12 languages. None of the writers knew each other. Yet they all described a town with startlingly similar features. The name Varenway appeared repeatedly. So did the tower with no bell. And a strange phrase: when the wind passes left, your memories aren't yours anymore. More disturbing, dozens of dreamers claimed to have never heard of Calvenhollow before dreaming about it, but once they did, the dreams returned, again and again, and each time, clearer. That's when the researchers tried a radical step. They generated a synthetic entry, an AI composite dream, created entirely from the common symbols. And they fed it back into RimNet. The AI paused, then returned a single output: 61.9956N, 149.5781 WA set of coordinates. Alaska, near the Nick River Basin. Remote, frozen, unremarkable, except a week later, an email arrived at the lab. No subject, signature, just one sentence: I worked there. 1982. That place was never supposed to exist on paper, and a photo was attached. An old, faded black and white snapshot showed a snow-covered hill and a tower, barely visible through fog. At the bottom corner, handwritten in pencil: Varenway, Calvenhollow. Do not map. The team reached Alaska 5 days later. No broadcast, no press, no funding grant mentioned Calvenhollow. The cover story listed the expedition as a data anomaly correction for atmospheric research. Just 3 people flew in: Dr. Eileen Marsh, systems engineer Theo Karim, and sound archivist Maya Lorne. None of them were ready for what they'd find. The coordinates led them to a frozen clearing along the Nick River. At first, there was nothing, just powder-white snow and a low humming wind. But when Maya stepped into the center of the GPS-marked spot, her breath caught. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. "There's no echo, not even from the air." She was right. Their voices, their boots, their instruments made no sound beyond direct contact. It wasn't silence. It was absence. The sound didn't bounce back. Theo ran a diagnostic, then frowned. "The barometric pressure here is impossible," he said. "It's almost like we're indoors." Then Elian noticed something else. The snow didn't reflect shadows. Not hers, not the team's, not even the drones. And just behind a ridge to the east, they found it. A structure buried chest deep in ice, steel reinforced. Circular hatch, faded lettering around the rim, written in a style neither Latin nor Cyrillic, yet somehow familiar. Symbol beneath it: a triangle inside a spiral, carved into steel. A fingerprint beneath frost. They dug through the snow for hours, revealing a frozen stairwell descending into darkness. 16 narrow stone steps. At the bottom, a thick door, slightly ajar. They didn't push it open, not yet. Maya pulled out her handheld mic to record the ambient silence, but instead her device emitted feedback. Sharp, high frequency, rhythmic. When she played it back, it wasn't static, it was speech. You were early. We haven't reset yet. There's no light here, only recursion. Memory is just a room. Some leave, some stay behind. The timestamp on the file read, April 12th, 1982, 43 years ago. Identical to the date on the black and white photo they had received. Way, Calvenhollow, do not map. As they stood before the door, Theo took out a Polaroid camera, a strange habit of his. He snapped a picture of the entrance. When the image developed, it showed something that hadn't been there in real life. A figure, standing just inside the shadows, facing away. No face, no hands. Only a gray coat and a school satchel. At the top of the door, just barely legible in the photo, were painted words. This is not your first time. They entered, and the door shut behind them, without a sound. They descended slowly. The stairs were damp, rusted, and smelled faintly of old oil and mildew. Yet there were no pipes, no machinery, nothing that could have generated the scent. The door had sealed behind them without effort. No latch, no sound, just closed, like it had been waiting for them to return. The corridor ahead sloped downward in a spiral, not carved, but poured concrete that pulsed faintly with heat. The walls had embedded lines, like veins or circuitry, but no wires, only curves, smooth, precise. Maya whispered, "It's too clean to be abandoned." Hélène reached out and touched the wall. It was warm. Halfway down the corridor, they found the first room. A classroom. No mistaking it. 6 small desks, a blackboard, even a single coat rack in the corner. But everything was wrong. The chalkboard had faint markings scrawled over and over. Way, 1201. Ask before forgetting. The bell rings only once. Hélène felt a pulse behind her eyes. Not pain, but familiarity. She sat down in one of the chairs without thinking. "I've been here," she said softly. "I was 10. Theo looked at her. "You were born in Denmark, I know," she replied. "But this was my first school. I think I left something here." She walked to the coat rack, reached into one of the small pockets sewn into the wood and pulled out a folded paper, a report card, name Ellen Marsh grade. 3 subject, collective silence teacher, Mr. Arganvale. Her hand began to shake. "This isn't real," she whispered. Theo looked at the bottom of the paper, dated April 12th, 1982.
Further in, they found rooms that shouldn't exist. A bakery, a phone booth, a small train station with 3 rusted benches. And yet, no outside, no sky, just room after room after room, arranged like memories pretending to be every object had dust, age, detail, except the clocks. Every clock in every room ticked backwards slowly, and each one stopped at 12:01. Then they found the mirror room. A perfect circle. No door. No lights, just mirrors on every wall. When Theo stepped inside, all the reflections showed him at different ages. Ages he remembered. Ages he didn't. In one mirror, he wore a school uniform, and his badge said, Calvenhollow, grade 6. In another, he was much older, beer-streaked gray, crying, reaching toward something behind glass. And in the final mirror, there was nothing at all, only a chair facing inward. He stepped back out. The moment he crossed the threshold, the door behind them reopened, the only one that hadn't shut silently. It creaked open on its own. At the bottom of the next stairwell was a single modern object, a USB stick wrapped in red twine. Theo plugged it into the offline drive he carried. No connection, no risk. The contents, one file, Verin_Psycha_07.log. He opened it. Just text, no metadata. But it began with a sentence none of them had written. To those walking the corridor again, you are not the first, but you may be the last. The rest of the file described an event called the reversion, a cycle, not of time, but of memory structure. When enough people forget something together, the town resets. When enough people remember it, the town manifests. And always the same group walks the corridors again, over and over. Maya leaned against the wall, whispering to herself. Theo looked at her uneasy. Then he checked the last lines of the file. There were names. 3 of them. Marsh Kareem, Lauren Elaine, Theo, Maya. And under the names Verin Way, 1201. One more turn of the key. A sound began to echo up the hall. Not a scream. Not a voice! A bell! Distant, heavy, ringing backward. Once, and then silent.
Further in, they found rooms that shouldn't exist. A bakery, phone booth, a small train station with 3 rusted benches. And yet no outside, no sky. Just room after room after room, arranged like memories pretending to be a town. Every object had dust, age, detail, except the clocks. Every clock in every room ticked backward, slowly, and each one stopped at 12:01. Then they found the mirror room, a perfect circle, no doors, no lights, just mirrors on every wall. When Theo stepped inside, all the reflections showed him at different ages. Ages he remembered. Ages he didn't. In one mirror, he wore a school uniform, and his badge said, Calvenhollow grade 6. In another, he was much older. Beard streaked gray, crying, reaching toward something behind glass. And in the final mirror, there was nothing at all, only a chair. Facing inward, he stepped back out. The moment he crossed the threshold, the door behind them reopened. The only one that hadn't shut silently. It creaked open on its own. At the bottom of the next stairwell was a single modern object, a USB stick, wrapped in red twine. Theo plugged it into the offline drive he carried. No connection, no risk. The contents, one file. frin_cycle_07.log. He opened it. Just text. No metadata, no date. But it began with a sentence none of them had written. To those walking the corridor again, you are not the first, but you may be the last. The rest of the file described an event called the reversion, a cycle, not of time, but of memory structure. When enough people forget something together, the town resets. When enough people remember it, the town manifests. And always the same group walks the corridors again. Over and over. Maya leaned against the wall, whispering to herself. Thea looked at her, uneasy. Then he checked the last lines of the file. They were names. 3 of them. Marsh Kareem, Lauren Elaine, Theo. Maya. And under the names, Verin Way, 1201. One more turn of the key. A sound began to echo up the hall. Not a scream, not a voice. A bell, distant, heavy, ringing backward. Once, and then silence. The bell faded, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than the sound itself. The corridor changed. It shouldn't have. The walls hadn't moved, but the sequence of rooms had. What had once been a bakery was now a post office. The floorboards were different. The hallway they had used 5 minutes ago was now brick instead of steel. But none of them had moved. Theo checked his Polaroid camera. He flipped back through the photos he'd taken since entering. Half of them were blank. One was upside down. The final photo taken just before the bell rang showed all 3 of them standing in a room. They hadn't been in yet. Eileen looked pale. She didn't say anything, just stared at her own hands like they were out of focus. I remember that room, she said. But I also...
I don't.
Then Maya spoke. I think someone put memories in us. They stopped, not our own, she continued. Implanted ones. Borrowed. It's like... Every time the town resets, we inherit ghosts. Theo opened the USB log again. This time he scrolled past the signatures, past the instructions, down to the very bottom, where he hadn't looked before. There was one final line. Calvenhollow is not just remembered, it is inhabited. If you're reading this, you're part of the inheritance. The next room they entered was unlike the others. It wasn't part of the town. It was clinical, sterile, white walls, two-way glass, fluorescent lighting overhead. An observation room. Side was a steel chair bolted to the floor and a table with a single leather-bound file folder labeled Verin Seed. Cycle 7. Control subjects. Maya opened it. Inside, 3 profiles. Dr. Eileen Marsh, Theo Kareem, Maya Lorne. Each had a short biographical entry, and then a memory implantation schema. Date of insertion: the 1st of April 2025. Target response: recognition and anchoring upon environmental re-entry. Maya's face went cold. "We didn't find Calvenhollow. We were sent back to activate it," Theo whispered. "Then who sent us?" They checked the folder again. On the final page, a signature, or rather a code. A Vellum_09 Aline staggered back. That name again. The same entity from the Bell blueprint years ago. The one who signed impossible diagrams? The one whose handwriting changed depending on who saw it? The one who, some said, wasn't real. The memory shifted around them, like a stage play pulling curtains between acts. The walls didn't move, but they weren't in the same room anymore. Now they stood outside a church. But the church was upside down, roof buried into stone, foundation pointed at the sky, and every window glowed with a dull crimson light. A sign above the arched door read, "Bell Mass. Entry through memory only." A sudden ringing, not distant, but inside their ears, pulsed through all three of them. And then Theo collapsed. Ellen and Maya rushed to him, but he wasn't unconscious. He was crying, repeating a name. "Evie, Imy. I'm sorry I let them erase you." But they didn't know an Imy. He had never spoken her name before, until now. Maya touched his shoulder, and in a flash, a memory not her own surged through her. A snowfield, a girl in a blue coat, a train that never arrived, and a voice whispering, "You'll forget me by morning." That's the only way the town stays safe. The truth settled in slowly. Calvenhollow didn't erase memories to hide. It planted them to return. Each person was a vessel, a beacon. When enough resonant carriers entered the field, the town rebuilt itself. Through them, the artifacts, the rooms, the children's voices and cassette tapes. They weren't ghosts. They were memories trying to come home. And Aline, Theo, and Maya, they were the gate. Theo didn't move for several minutes. When he finally spoke again, his voice was unfamiliar, like something half-remembered from childhood. He looked up at Ellen and Maya and asked, "Why did you leave me at the station?" Neither of them had. But neither of them answered, because somewhere deep down, they both recognized the platform, the train that never came, and the color of the girl's coat, even though they had never seen it with waking eyes. The room around them had changed again. No transition, no door opening, just ... shift. Now they were in a library, or rather what remained of one. Burned shelves. Charred books, the only thing untouched. A single reading desk with 3 chairs, and on it, a rotary switch. 3 slots. 1 lever. A small brass plaque. Restore, forget, retain. They were labeled in a circular order, as if the cycle was meant to repeat. Maya walked toward it. She hesitated. This is it, the seed protocol, the trigger for the mnemonic collapse. Aline stared at it. What happens if we restore? Theo was quiet, then he said, Calvenhollow returns, not his memory, his place, fixed, permanent. And if we forget, Maya asked, we wake up in our homes, our inbox is clean, our minds ... light. They sat at the desk. All 3, like children being tested. But none of them touched the switch. A voice spoke, soft, gentle, genderless, not from any device. Just there, in the air between them, you've remembered enough to choose. But choose now, or the town will choose for you. Suddenly, the rotary switch began to rotate on its own. The lever hovered between retain and restore. Theo whispered, retain. Maya answered. It means we remember it exists, but we guarantee bring it back. Aline looked at the books around them. One of them, unburnt, had a familiar title. The places we agreed to bury. She opened it. Inside was a page dated next week. The 3 of them. Standing in the ruins of Calvenhollow, smiling. The caption below, last cycle before material lock. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. Not from a system, but inside their heads. A rushing noise like every memory in their life trying to play at once. Images, names, old smells, forgotten phone numbers, childhood teachers, all of it slamming forward like a flood. And underneath it all, one name pulsing through the confusion, a Dawn Vellum. The same name from the blueprint. The same signature from the erasure tapes. The same presence behind the Varen cycle. Maya stood up. I think, ... I remember who built this. She reached for the switch and paused. Then she looked at Elaine and Theo. If we restore, Calvenhollow returns. For real, not just in dreams. As a location. A place that never dies, Elaine asked. And if it was never meant to, no one answered. Theo spoke again, voice low. If Calvenhollow is a trap, restoring it locks us inside. But if it's a memory that doesn't belong to us, then forgetting means losing something sacred, Maya asked. What if remembering it was the entire point? They looked at each other. Then Maya flipped the switch. 2. Retain. The lights went out. For a moment, only silence. Then the room shifted for the final time, and they were back. In the snow, outside the hatch, no memory of entering it, no memory of a bell. But when they looked at their hands, each of them had an object. Elaine held the report card. Theo held the Polaroid photo of the figure in the gray coat. Maya held a small metal plaque. It read, Calvenhollow is safe now. You've remembered just enough. And beneath that, etched faintly, Cycle 08 ready. The storm had passed. Snowfield lay quiet beneath a milky sky, gray and featureless. A chill wind moved across the landscape but didn't stir their coats. It was as if the world had paused, waiting for something. Eliane, Theo, and Maya stood in silence, holding their artifacts. None of them spoke, because they couldn't remember what had just happened. Or rather, they could only when they didn't try. The memory sat behind a veil, not erased, not hidden, just fully distant. Like a song you once knew by heart but can't hum anymore, they began walking, away from the hatch. No one turned back. And as they crested the hill overlooking the ridge, Maya stopped. She was holding the small metal plaque. Did either of you notice this? She pointed to the reverse side. On the back of the plaque was a message. You are the anchor. Every cycle needs 3. But you are the first to choose to remember. Somewhere beyond, servers flickered back to life. Net 1 once shut down had rebooted. No command had been given, but it had received a signal, an untraceable carrier pulse embedded within one of Maya's recordings. Inside the Remnet dataset, new entry appeared. Calven hollow.asset. Anchor _confirmed _08 triad _status. Stable manifest _range unlocked, and then a new dream pattern surfaced. Not from the past, from future submissions. Names of new dreamers, thousands of them, began appearing, all describing the same strange places. A library with burning shelves and only 3 chairs, a train station without tracks. A tower that never casts a shadow, a street named Viren Way that only exists if enough people recall it. In one phrase, repeated like a whisper from the base code itself. You've been here before. The door is always open. You just have to remember the town. Months later, a boy in rural Ontario submitted a drawing to his art teacher. It showed a place he'd never been, a town, covered in snow. A clock tower at its center. At the bottom, he'd written a caption in red crayon. We dreamed it back together. Teacher asked him what it was. He shrugged. It's just something I remembered one night. My mom said I used to live there. His name? A Dawn Vellum. And so ends the story of Calvenhollow, a town that cannot be found unless it's remembered. A town that is not on any map, because you are the map. And if you've heard this story, you may have already been there. The question is, do you still want to forget?